Hi everyone, my name is Kasia Zmokła. Welcome to my channel, where you will always find photo editing training and educational videos to help you grow as an artist and photographer. In today's video we are going to be working on a portrait of Marcella, and I'm going to show you how you can use the skin tone tab in the color editor to create a stylized color grading effect. So this image is going to be our starting point. This is the original raw file, and we'll be working towards this effect. So when you are typically color grading, you would use the skin tone tab to even out the skin, to get rid of unwanted color shifts, and if you would like to target specific colors, if you would like to go for a stylized effect, you would go for either color balance or advanced color editor. And in this video I'm going to show you how you can use the skin tone tab to take it as a basic tool when you are after a stylized portrait. Ready? Let's jump right into it. Okay, so let's take a look at our image. Before we start talking specifically about color grading this image, about creating this stylized effect, I want to quickly walk you through all the steps that I have performed before I started working on color. If we take a look at our layer stack, you can see that starting from this layer, skin tone and color, I started working on color grading, but before I've done just that, I have several more layers. So first of all, we have heal layers, we have dodge and burn. So let me just very quickly show you what I have done on these layers, because these layers, all these adjustments are crucial for any successful portrait edit. So this is my image after switching off all these layers that contain the adjustments. However, this is not the original raw image yet. This is the original image, this is the starting point. So what I have performed on my background layer. On the background layer, I have performed my favorite operation. So this is what I always recommend, and it doesn't matter if you are working on a portrait, on a landscape, no matter the genre. This is my recommended step, because with the auto levels adjustment you are able to set the proper foundation for your edit. So if we just take a look at the histogram, you can see that now after correcting my levels automatically, I was able to stretch the whole information along the graph. Before, if I now press and hold on this little arrow, you can see that the graph looks differently. And let me just create a new variant of this image, because I was manipulating with HDR tool as well. I was adjusting shadows. So just to show you how the image looked like at the very beginning, I have created new variant. So this is the image before I have cropped it, and here you can see what is the difference. So this is the image before I have applied auto levels, and if you take a look at the histogram, you can see that we are clipping a bit of shadows here. We can use the exposure warning. So if I switch this on, yes, you can see that we are clipping a little bit of the shadows, not much, but we have lost detail in those dark areas in the hair, a little bit in the eye. The image is underexposed, so the highlights look good, but the shadows are clipped. So let me just switch off the exposure warning, and this is reflected clearly in the histogram. So to the left we can see that the shadows are clipped. We have plenty of beautiful midtones here, plenty of data in the midtones range, and when we take a look at the right hand side of the histogram, we are lacking highlights, we have no bright tones. So the image is pushed towards dark tones, the midtones got very heavy, very dark, and just after applying auto levels, you can do this with this second icon visible here in the levels tab. Once you click on this, this will adjust your levels. And if you just now take a look at the histogram, and if I temporarily switch off the levels adjustment. So this is before, this is the after. Just take a look at the histogram, before and after. So this is how this tool is able in a split of a second establish a foundation for your edit. So let me just quickly jump back to the previous image. So here I have manually readjusted those points, but basically what was applied here is quite near to is happening here. So I have readjusted those points manually because, as I just mentioned, at the background layer, so we are here now, I was manipulating with the shadow slider. I wanted to open up those shadows and introduce a little bit more light to have her face lit a little bit more evenly. So if I switch this off, this is how the image looked like before, and this is how it looks like after opening up the shadows. So mostly I was interested in having a little bit more detail in this eye. I knew that I will edit it later on, that I will be adding a little bit of dodging and burning, but I just wanted to have a little bit better starting point. So again, this is the image before and after applying HDR adjustment. Okay, so what else I've done here? I haven't touched the curves. I have applied the auto levels and I've been working on HDR. Apart from that, I have corrected white balance. So if we take a look at the original temperature, so if I press and hold the Alt key, and if you just take a look, this is very little difference. If you just take a look at the value beside Kelvin, so now after the adjustment the number is 4270 and before it's 4189. I just wanted to make this image a little bit warmer, so the result is not very strongly visible, but it is there. I just touched this a little bit to have the image on a bit warmer side because it contains a lot of these blues, greens, and I wanted to have those tones a little bit more harmonious with the skin tones. So as you can see on my background layer, I have basically performed some exposure adjustments. I've been working on luminosity. So additionally, I've been pushing my exposure towards 0.56. So this is the original image before applying the adjustment on exposure and after. So this is what I've done on my background layer. Very, very quick adjustments, very intuitive. This is the initial steps that can establish really strong foundation for any edit. So the exposure adjustment, before I've done the exposure adjustment, always do this as the very first step. I have performed the auto levels, then I've been working on white balance, and at the very end, I have opened a little bit the shadows. So this is my background layer. Let's now jump over and let's focus on the next 3 layers where I have been working on cleaning up the skin. So you must know for sure by now that Capture One has this new healing brush that can handle a lot in terms of skin retouch. So I want to mention here, I want to make it very clear that this is not a beauty retouch. For this you definitely need to jump over to Photoshop. Very often I have heard comments that it's not worth the time spending in Capture One and working with this tool when you are required to provide really professional results and just perfect spotless skin. So I agree with this fully, don't get me wrong. When you are working on a beauty retouch, when you are asked by your client to provide an image that is just spotless with perfect clean skin, for this definitely you should jump over to Photoshop, and just Photoshop has tools dedicated to this process and you can do this way faster. However, if you're working on a fine art portrait and your result is basically up to you, you decide how much of the skin you want to retouch, how much you want to leave in, then you can easily stay with Capture One. And remember that staying inside your raw editor, and here it doesn't matter if you are working with Lightroom, Capture One or Adobe Camera Raw, just staying inside your raw editor without exporting your image to a bitmap, to TIFF or PSD, helps you to maintain the highest possible quality. So when we are working with a raw file, we have at our disposal all the data that was recorded on our memory card. Once we would jump out of the raw editor, in this case, when we jump over to Photoshop and we leave Capture One, we are already losing access to this data, and if we would jump to Photoshop and perform the skin retouch over there and then go back to perform color grading, we would be working already on a TIFF. And this can be, of course, done when you are working on a sort of beauty image. However, if you can stay inside Capture One, please do so and your images will look way, way better. So let me now super quickly walk you through my heal layers. So to clean up the skin, I've been working with the healing brush. This is the tool that is visible here. So all you need to do is to just pick the brush and start working on the image. So here I've been working at a higher magnification level. I'm now at 200%. So first of all, you need to get into your brush settings. So right click on the image and here you can set size of the brush. So we can do this here. You can go for hardness, opacity and flow. So when it comes to hardness, when you are retouching skin, of course you want to go for as soft edges as possible. So typically I would work with the value 0. When it comes to opacity, I would go for 100. And when it comes to flow, it depends, because when I start retouching the skin, and you can see that I have 3 layers on which I have retouched the skin. So on the very first one, the heal layer number 1, I would go for flow at 100%. Then on next layers, I would modify this value. Let me just show you. So if I go on my heal layer number 1, you can see the results that I have achieved here. So this is before, this is the after. So here I've been working with my brush set to the flow at 100. So if I'm on this layer and if I hover over the image, you can see all those points where I have retouched the image, and the arrows are showing points from Capture One was taking the data to fix those points that I have selected. So this is my first layer, and let's just zoom in so we'll see those points. So this is my first layer. Here I had the flow set to 100. If we now jump over to the heal layer number 2, this is the result I got on this layer. So you can see that I've been polishing the face further. So here I've been working, I would say again, with the flow set to 100. However, there are certain parts, especially here around the lips, where I needed softer transitions. And when you are fixing little things like this, so let me just switch off this layer and switch it on again, there is this little part here that I wanted to fix. So again, before and after. So to just fix this line inside the lips, I've been working with the healing brush set to lower flow value. So I wanted to have the result sort of half transparent. So that way I wouldn't be copying this line from another place, from here, and pasting it here. But if I'm working with lower flow value, this creates more subtle result, and sometimes this blends better, especially when you are working on retouching the skin. So this is what you should remember when you are working with the heal brush and when you are working with the clone brush, that you have those settings at your disposal, that you can still change the opacity and flow. So whenever you are retouching skin and you are creating just too obvious effect, to obvious result, you might benefit by lowering especially the flow, this value. So your retouching efforts will blend better. So this is my second layer, and here on the third layer, specifically on this one, I've been working with lower flow value. So here I've been focusing just a little bit on fixing few last parts in the forehead and still a little bit around the chin and on her cheek. So on those 3 layers, I've been working with the heel brush. Why I've been working on 3 layers? Why I couldn't do this on 1 layer only? So the reason is very simple. If we jump over to the heel layer number 1, you can see that after going for 200% magnification level, I have so many of these control points, so it turns super difficult to add more. You are confusing Capture One and sometimes you get in trouble. So to maintain control and to have the flexibility, typically I would add just another heel layer and I would continue working over there. There is a limit when it comes to the amount of layers that you can have in Capture One in the layers editor. However, when it comes to the healing of my portraits, I don't skip on creating new layers because this is just super important. When I'm working on a portrait, if I don't perform these steps right, if I don't manage to get pleasing results, there is simply no point for me to work further on dodging and burning and on color grading, because healing the skin, preparing the portrait for further edits is just crucial. So remember, create as many of these healing layers as you need, and after you are happy with the result, you can jump over and start working on color grading. So again, let's just take a look. Let me just zoom in. So this is the image after cleaning the skin, and if I just switch off those layers, this is the image before. So this is magnification 100%, but I'm on a retina display. So to have better representation of the work that I've done, we can go for 200. So again, this is before and this is after cleaning the skin with the heel brush in Capture One. So after preparing the skin, I've been performing a little bit of dodging and burning. So if you are coming from Photoshop, you must be for sure familiar with this technique. So basically in Photoshop, you would create 2 layers. Okay, the stack can be a bit more complex if you needed to do so, but in Capture One, to replicate the process of dodging and burning, you would create basically 2 layers, dodge and burn. As you can see, only on these 2 layers I've been able to add more depth to the image. I've been able to shape the face a little bit. Let's just switch off my healing brush so I won't be seeing the arrows, the overlay. So this is what I have achieved on the dodge and burn layer. So how do you go about this? So basically the dodge layer is the layer where you are making selected areas in your image brighter, and on the burn layer is when you are making selected areas in your image darker. I'm not going to walk you through all the details of dodging and burning process, so the same as I wasn't healing the image in this video. If you would like to see the whole process step by step of healing the skin with the heel brush tool, watch the video that I have recorded specifically on retouching the skin with the heel brush. I'm going to add a link in the description to this video, and it should be visible now in the upper right corner. So in this video, I will walk you through all the steps of healing your image with the heel brush, and if you are specifically interested in dodging and burning, I will add a link to the video where I will show you again in depth, step by step, with every detail, the whole process of creating these 2 layers and all the principles behind successful dodging and burning. So just to say very quickly, very shortly, on your dodging layer, you are creating a curve. Typically this would be Luma curve because you don't want to affect colors. You want to keep the colors neutral. You don't want to create saturation shifts after you apply adjustment on your layer. So remember, for dodging and burning, you always go for Luma curve, and here on dodging you push your curve upwards, so that way you will be making selected areas in your image brighter. So let me just switch on my mask. I'm hitting M on the keyboard. So this is my mask for dodging. So everywhere where you can see this red overlay, this is the areas where I have brightened the image. You can as well in Capture One have a preview of your mask in black and white. In order to do this, use the keyboard shortcut Alt and M. So this is my mask in black and white. Wherever you see those white brush strokes, in those areas I've been working with the brush, I have created the mask, and then we have this result. So let's switch off the mask. So this is my mask for dodging, and you can see, let's switch off the burn. So this is my result before applying dodging and after. So as you can see very clearly, in case of this image, dodging is the next step that helps to retouch the skin. So with the heal layer, we've been basically cleaning the skin from all those little imperfections, all those little spots, but with the dodge tool, we've been working on those larger transitions. So if you just take a close look, let's say you can look here on her cheek or on the right hand side of the forehead. So now after applying dodging, all these transitions are smooth. So I didn't want to make the skin super perfect. This is just natural portrait. I wanted to maintain realistic look, but I have improved those transitions. So here you have plenty of these uneven areas. So if I just zoom in, now this is better visible when the image is zoomed out. So we are still looking at the image at 100% magnification level, and you can see all those little darker spots. So here on the forehead here. So when I've been working with dodging, I've been brightening those little areas here around the eye, here those lines from the nose. So I've been working on brightening those areas and working towards smoothening those transitions. So the result that you can get with dodging layer is really important. So I would never skip this step when I'm working on a portrait retouch. So again, this is before, this is the after. Burn, this is the second layer when you do just the opposite. So here on burn layer, you would create one control point and you would push it downwards. So that way, when you are creating your mask, let's just jump back to layers. So on that layer, when you are working on your mask, you will be darkening selected areas in the image. And if we hit M, this is the preview of my mask. So wherever you see this red overlay, this indicates that I have decided to darken those areas. If we want to take a look at the mask in black and white, you can hit Alt and M. So here you can see that I just wanted to make the eye a little bit stronger. I've been working on darkening the eyebrow, and here I've darkened a little bit the area under the chin to make it a little bit more three-dimensional. So this is what I've performed with my burn layer. So typically, of course, it depends on the image, but typically you would spend way more time on dodging than burning. And again, this is very subjective. All those adjustments you will always perform basing on your taste. So for me, this is where I went when it comes to the healing the skin, and this is where I went when it comes to the dodging and burning. Some of you would like to have stronger effect and work stronger on shaping the face. I like keeping my portraits natural, and especially when it comes to portraiting this girl, Marcella, I really like keeping it very subtle, very natural, and I think that the image holds the attention already. I don't have to go towards manipulating with it further when it comes to shaping the face and when it comes to targeted luminosity adjustments. Okay, so I have walked you through my entire process of healing and dodging and burning. Now we are going to talk about adjusting, enhancing the eyes, because eyes are super important when you are working on portrait, and especially when you have such a potential as in case of this image. So we have those very natural, beautiful catch lights, and adding a little bit of enhancement on the eyes can help working on your portrait further. So on the eyes layer, I would create a very simple mask. So this is my mask. I would go over those dark areas in the eyes. And here, in case of this portrait, I wanted to brighten up the eyes a little bit. So this allowed me to reveal the detail that was recorded, that was there, but was not visible because it was just covered in dark shadows. So this is the image before, this is the image after adjusting the eyes. So I have opened the shadows, and additionally I have applied a little bit of clarity adjustment. So before I done just that, after opening the shadows, the eyes will be very bright, too bright of course, but when you apply clarity, you will add more contrast in the midtones range. This will darken the eyes. I went for the punch method because with this method, Capture One can add a little bit more color. So when you are going for natural method, this won't affect color, but with punch, Capture One can alter saturation, and I don't mind doing this in case of this picture. So let's just zoom out, and you might say that this is too much. So again, this is very subjective. If I would be just looking at the close-up of those eyes, I would say that this is too much as well. But when I zoom out, and if I take a look at the portrait as overall composition, I think that this works quite well. So this is before and this is the after. So remember that when you are working with layers in Capture One, you are working of course in a non-destructive way. So at any point after applying your color grading, you can always go back, you can return to those layers, and you can further fine-tune it. So you can either go lower with opacity on this layer if you feel that this is too much, or you can go down here with the shadow adjustment. So this is what I've done on my layer that targets the eyes. Again, this is before and this is the after. So at this stage, I'm happy with the foundation, with how the image is prepared for further work. So before I start working on color grading, I want to really emphasize this, that these steps, I know that they are really time consuming and they require a lot of patience. However, if you would be working on color grading without going through all these adjustments, I would say that you will never achieve good results, because these steps are really crucial. So let me just show you. If I would skip these steps, if I wouldn't heal the skin, but I would apply my color grading. So here are my beautiful colors. So here I've been stylizing the image with the skin tone tab, then I've been polishing my color grading, then I've been fine-tuning my luminosity. So this is the final result that I wanted to achieve. But let's just super quick, just as an experiment, switch off all these layers where I have performed, let's say for the beginning, healing the skin. So this is my image, how it would look like with my color grading, but without cleaning the skin. Let me just switch off my dodging and burning. So if you want to go for super natural effect, you might leave it as it is, but I think that working a little bit on cleaning up the skin can really benefit a portrait like that. So of course, again, this is super subjective, but just to show you the difference, in my opinion, it simply doesn't make sense to spend all the time and create the beautiful color grading, because the result with, so this is with and without skin retouch is really dramatic. So this is my image after performing the skin cleanup, and this is with dodging and burning. So even skipping on the dodging and burning, if I would switch off my dodge layer, you can see that the image looks very, very different. I feel that after applying the dodging, I just make the image more harmonious and more pleasing to look at as a final composition in terms of luminosity adjustments. So again, so this is before dodging and burning, and this is the after. So if you ask my opinion, I would always recommend to perform all these steps. I would always work a little bit on healing the skin, on fixing the texture, and on dodging and burning. And once this is done, you can start working on color grading. And again, if you want to learn in detail how to heal the skin, how to work with the heal brush, and if you want to go in depth and learn the whole process from A to Z of dodging and burning, check out links in my description to this video. Okay, so let's now move over and let's start working with our color dedicated tool, and we will be working with the skin tone tool. So let's very quickly clone this image. So I'm going to create clone variant. So now let's maybe get rid of this one because it will be a bit confusing. So on this one, I'm just going to delete all those layers where I've been working with color, and I'm going to remove the film grain. I believe there is some film grain, yes. So I'm going to just get rid of this, and right now we have the image at the stage that I have achieved after applying all the healing layers and my dodging and burning. So if we just look at these two images side by side, you can see, and of course this image was first. No, I don't think I can change the order right now, but if we just look at the images side by side, you can see that this will be our starting point for color grading, and this is the result that I'm after. So in this image, after healing and after dodging and burning, I just wanted to go for a bit more stylized color grading. Of course, I could just work on the skin tones, make them a little bit brighter, and perhaps push them a bit towards yellowish tone, as I've done just here. So this will complement nicely with the bluish sweater. However, I wanted to go for something a bit stronger, and I have used the skin tone tab in the color editor to create this super stylized color grading effect. So let's just work with this image. We can hide our browser so we'll have more space. Let's zoom in a little bit, and let's now jump over to our color tab, and here we have our color editor, and we will be working with the last tab, the skin tone tab. Okay, before we start working with the skin tone tab, let's create a new layer. So I'm going to make this tab a little bit bigger, and here I'm going to create new field adjustment layer, and I'm just going to rename it to skin tone. Okay, so here we have our layer, and here we will start working with our color grading. So typically the skin tone tab will be used on portraits to even out the skin. So when we take a look at this portrait, we have a little bit of color shift. So we have some uneven areas in terms of color. We have a little bit more of pink here in the cheek. We have a little bit more of these magentish tones here in the forehead. We have a little bit more orange here. So if you would like to unify the skin in terms of hue, saturation, and lightness, you would do this with the skin tone tab. So this is basically the main purpose of this tool. However, it can be used to create a strong color shifts, and you can use this tool in any genre that you want. In case of this image, we will be working on creating different color for the sweater and pushing all those tones in the image towards one unified direction. Okay, so let me just create my first sample, and you will see in practice how this tool will perform, because as always, explaining these things in words without actually working is just confusing and sounds super complex, super difficult, but in fact it is not. So let's just start working. You can follow me along and you can learn how to create a stylized color grading effect with the skin tone tab. And by the way, if you're getting values from my videos, I would be super happy if you like this video, if you leave me thumbs up, if you leave me comment on this video. As always, if you have any questions, if you don't understand anything that I'm explaining or anything that you would like to go more in depth, you can always leave me a comment and I reply to all my comments on my videos. So like the video, leave me a comment, and if you like the content, I will be super pumped up if you subscribe to my channel, if you hit the bell icon, and that way you will get notifications on every future video that I publish. Okay, so let's pick our picker here inside the skin tone, and I'm going to sample inside the image to get my color that we will be altering. It is not crucial to create a perfect sample here, because I'm going to show you in a few seconds that you can still change it, you can still push around inside the color wheel the point that you will sample. Okay, let me show you how to do this in practice. So I'm going to sample somewhere between the yellows and oranges, so maybe where the color is a little bit more saturated, let's say here. So here I have created my sample. First of all, let's just click on this icon. So this will make sure that the whole saturation range of my selected color sample is included inside the selection, because now we can see that this slice here represents the selection, so the stronger saturated hues are not included in the selection. If I just click on this little icon, I have now included everything inside the slice. To get a preview of your selection, you can click on this little icon here. So now everything that is grayed out is excluded from your selection. So this is obvious. We have yellows, maybe not yellows, we have the oranges, reds, and a little bit of magentas. So all these colors are included, and the sweater was sort of bluish, magentish, so this is lying, this range of color is lying somewhere here, and we can see that this is excluded from our selection. So let me again show you. Whatever is grayed out is excluded from our selection. So now this is where the beauty of this tool lies. So now I can extend my selection range, and by doing this, I will be including blues, I will be including the greens, so basically I will be including my background. And that way now, if I start manipulating with these sliders here, so in other words, if I start affecting my initial color sample, this will affect all these colors that are now included in my selection, so not only the little slice that was originally generated by Capture One. So originally we had only some of the skin tones. We had the oranges, a little bit of reds, and a bit of magentas, but now I have pushed this line that far, so I have included all the blues and greens, all those cyans. So let's now start manipulating with these sliders here. So when it comes to the amount, we can now push that hue either towards the yellowish tone or towards the pinkish tone. So this little dot here indicates the area where I have sampled inside the image. So if I start pushing my hue towards the right, you can see very clearly that I'm adding yellow. If I go the other way, if I go the opposite direction, I would be adding more magenta. So if you take a look at the color wheel, just going upwards, and you could say counterclockwise, you will be adding yellow, and going clockwise, you will be adding more magenta. So here you are obviously going either left or right. So I wanted to add a little bit more yellow, so let's double click to zero out our slider, and I'm going to just to push it towards the right. I don't want to overdo this. I think something around 0.9 looks good. So again, this is before, this is the after. When it comes to saturation, let's maybe increase saturation a little bit. Let's just make something stronger. We can always fine-tune it when I will start working on uniformity sliders. And when it comes to lightness, let's just brighten this sample a little bit. So let's go for something around 3.6. So the difference is not that strongly visible here. Basically, this is the sample before my adjustments, and this is the sample after I have adjusted the color. Let's now start the whole fun. So with the uniformity sliders, when you start working with the hue, now you will tell Capture One to unify towards this adjusted sample, to unify towards this color all the colors that are inside your selection range. So Capture One will push towards this sort of color, towards this hue, all the colors that are visible here. So it will push towards this tone, all the blues, all the skin tones, and all the cyans that are included here. So let's just see how this will work. If I start pushing my hue slider towards the right hand side, you can see that this is super strongly affecting the image. And now this is the time when I can change the position of my sampled color, because I have sampled in sort of orangey, yellowy place, but the skin is definitely getting too red. So let me just reposition this point. I'm going to go a little bit more towards the yellow tones. So I'm going to go a little bit upwards. So let's go for something like this. And I think we can go down a little bit with saturation. No, let's just touch the saturation slider in here. So if I start, let's now hit enter, so this will disappear. Now, if we manipulate with the saturation slider in the uniformity tab, you can see that this is basically pushing all those colors that are inside our selection towards the same saturation level. So this is how this works. I'm going to extend my selection here, so I will include more yellows, because this is creating super unnatural effect inside the face that included more yellows, and we've been basically cutting it in half. So I'm going to go somewhere around here, and I'm going to go down with this one, because I don't want to change the cyans, those tones in the background. So basically I'm going to go for, let's say, something like this. Okay, so let's further fine-tune this point. Let's take a really close look at the skin tones. Okay, let's revisit our amount slider. So here I can go a little bit lower on the hue. When it comes to saturation, let's see, this is more, this is less. No, definitely I want to maintain the strong saturation, but 8.4 is a little bit too much. Let's go for maybe 8.2. Okay, and when it comes to lightness, I think this value works really well. And now I want to modify the mask, because as you can see, those color adjustments affected the lips, they affected the eyes, and this creates this super unnatural effect. So I'm just going to super quickly erase those areas in my mask so they won't be affected by the adjustment. So now if I hit M, this is my mask, it fully covers the image. Let me just zoom in, and let's go for E for eraser, and let's go for high flow, and let's just erase my mask, first of all from the eyes. So now this is my mask with this little hole inside, and let's just erase it from the other eye. I'm just going to go for a little lower flow and erase it from the eyebrows because they lost their original a bit colder tone. The same from eyelashes here. And I'm going to remove it from the lips. Let's go for higher flow. So that way I will be going back to the original colors in the image. So I will have my stylized effect applied over the image apart from the lips, apart from the eyes, and I'm going to erase this from the cheekbones as well. Okay. So this is my mask after modification. And here I'm going to go for bigger brush, but I'm going to go for lower flow. I want to be quite subtle here, just to get back a little bit of the original color that was visible on the cheeks. So that way it can be treated as a blush. Okay, so that way the image looks way more natural. Next I'm going to target those colors that appeared here. So I prefer it to have it in blue as it was in the original image, because this is the light that was naturally reflected from the sky. The image was taken beside a huge window, so this is looking way more natural. So this is how my mask looks like after adjustments and before. Here we can fix the part here on the background, because I don't want to have the edge in a different color later on. Let's just paint it back. But basically this is what we want here. Let's just erase this one. So this is my mask after applying these adjustments, after erasing the areas that we want to maintain the natural color. Okay, so let's switch off the preview of our mask and let's get back to our image. So you can see now that what felt quite wrong and quite strange before, after this very subtle modification on the mask, after removing certain areas from our mask covering, how this helped to maintain this more natural look and maintain the super strong color shift that we have applied to the other areas of the image. So let's again switch off this layer. So this is our image before applying the color stylization with the skin tone tab, and this is the image after. So here again we can try to reposition the point. So if we just go towards different area, we will be pointing to capture one what color basically we wanted to push our tones towards to. So if I go, let's say, for the yellow, this is telling Capture One to push all these colors that are inside my selection, to push them towards the yellow in terms of hue, in terms of saturation. So let's go for blue again. So this is super strong effect, and I'm just going to go for something a little bit closer to my tone that I have sampled at the beginning. So you can see that the closer I go to the middle of the color wheel, the less saturated the colors are. You can as well take a look at the color samples here. So you can really spend a lot of time playing around with this tool, and I think it's totally worth it because you can create really beautiful results. So now my color grading got this very beautiful sort of silverish tone. I would compare it to the pearls. It's very subtle, very feminine, and you can just play around with this and you can achieve this color, you can achieve this result without going lower on saturation in the exposure tab. So all this you can do here in the skin tone tab. So let me just go maybe a little bit towards more saturated color somewhere here, because next I'm just going to add one more step to this edit and work with color balance. Okay, so I would say that at this point, when you are working on color grading, it is a very good idea to step away from the screen and just go back after a few minutes to take a look at the image with fresh eyes, because now I would say I can't already see a strong difference, and I feel that the skin tones are a little bit too dark. So let's just switch this off and on. No, now it actually looks quite good. We could maybe go a little bit higher here on saturation. So this will unify the tones even stronger when it comes to hue. If we go lower, this will bring back some of the natural colors, the original colors, and if we go further here, this will get rid of them, and this will push everything towards this hue. So I think something around maybe 60, around 50 would be a good idea here. So on this layer, I have created the strongest change in the image when it comes to stylizing it with color, when it comes to creating the stylized color grading. Let me now create one more layer, and we are going to finish off this color grading with a little touch of the color balance. So let's just super quickly create new field adjustment layer, and let's just simply call it color, because now on this layer we will be working with color balance, and we will be basically targeting the whole image per se, and we will be working towards further harmonizing those tones. And remember that inside the color balance tool you can as well fine-tune luminosity levels of selected luminosity ranges. So inside our color balance, remember to stay on your color layer. Let's begin with the master tab. So here on the master, this is the only tab where you actually don't have access to adjusting luminosity, but you can do this in shadow, midtones and highlights with this slider positioned to the right. Okay, so let's quickly jump back to my master, and here I would say I would like to add a little bit more warmth to the image, so this will unify the tones, because now the image has quite a strong color contrast, which is not bad, the color contrast between the purples and the greens. As you can see here, basically the greens are here positioned in the color wheel, and the purples are exactly opposite from them. So this creates very, very strong color contrast. This means these colors will harmonize together. However, I feel that the image will benefit if I add a little bit warmer tone overall in the master tab. So let's just go for something like this. So this is adding orange overall to the whole image. Let's now jump over to my shadow tab, and here I will go for the typical operation, and I will add a touch of blue to my shadow. So this will add depth to the image. Let's go maybe something closer to the background. So like this, I'm adding more purple blue, and this is affecting very strongly the hair, and I want it to be harmonious with the background that lies sort of here. So let's go for something closer to the background, something closer to the cyans. So quite strong, quite saturated color. You can see how just this step harmonizes the hair with the background. So basically it creates this very beautiful color link, and this makes the image way more harmonious, way more balanced in terms of color. So I've made this adjustment. I've added a hint of cyan to the image. Let's go for even a more stronger saturation, and I want to darken the shadow. So here I will be further manipulating with luminosity of the selected luminosity range. So this will affect only shadows range in the image. So let's go for something like this. Let's now jump over to my midtone tab, and here I want to warmer up the midtones a little bit more. So let's go for something between the orange and yellow. Okay, something like this. And here I want to brighten up my midtone. So I will go with this slider upwards, quite far as you can see. And when it comes to my highlights, okay, let's maybe make this one a little bit more cooler, so I'm going towards the greens, but I'm maintaining the yellow color, so a bit less orange and a little bit more yellow. When it comes to the highlights, I feel they will benefit by adding the complementary color, so I will go for just a touch of cyan here. So we have those very beautiful strong highlights inside the eyes, and they are reflecting the light from the outside, so they are naturally blue. So by adding here inside the highlights still a little bit more cyan, we are not going against what was already present in the image, we are strengthening it, we are working within the color range that was captured by the camera. So let's go maybe somewhere here and let's brighten the highlights as well. Okay, so after performing these adjustments, especially in the shadows range, okay, here this disappeared, let's just again call it color. Okay, that's now working fine. So especially in the shadow range, we have darkened the shadows. We have added a bit of cyan, but this darkened overall the shadow range. So this made the hair way, way darker. I'm going to fix this as the very last layer here in this edit, and this is what I would typically do. I would add one more layer curves, and over there I would be looking at the final luminosity adjustments in this image. Because I could maybe try working with the HDR, but this would basically open up the shadows, but I would like to add a little bit more contrast and take a look at the whole image when applying my curves. So let's add one more field adjustment layer. Let's rename it to Curves Luminosity. And here on this layer, let's just lift the blacks. Okay, so let's just get our curves. Let's right click on the image, add tool, and let's select curve from here. So we can switch off color balance, we can maybe move them away, and let's make our curves tool as big as possible, so this will allow us precision. So let's try to apply some of the ready presets, this can be helpful. So let's go for contrast Luma, contrast RGB. Okay, so let's go for this one, and here I want to brighten my shadow, so I'm going to basically drag my black point upwards, so this will be creating sort of matte effect and lifting my shadows. So something like this. Maybe we can go a little bit lower with the bright tones, and I'm going to fine-tune this. Let's go a bit higher with this point. I'm going to fine-tune it on the Luma curve. And here basically let's just pull the whole curve upwards. So remember, with the Luma curve you are not affecting color. So basically I'm adding light, I'm brightening the image overall, but the colors are untouched. So let's just leave it somewhere here, and let's maybe flatten the curve around this place. So we are getting back to this beautiful matte effect. And let's jump back to our RGB and let's see if we can make those shadows still a little bit lighter. Okay, so let's just quickly check. This is before and this is after applying the curves. I feel that this part of the face is a little bit too bright. If we just check the color readouts, yes, we are clipping here the reds. We can see 255 for the reds. So let's just go lower here. So that way we will recover a little bit of texture here on the cheek area. So now we are still around 255. Okay, this could be fixed if we really wanted to. We could jump over to our HDR and go on the negative value with highlight. So here we should recover a bit of texture here in the cheek area. So let's just check again. In terms of color, we are still clipping the reds, but the other values look good. We have 227 for the green, 235 for the blue. So we are basically clipping data in the red channel. So this is visible here, actually here in our histogram. So we are clipping the red, but overall it doesn't look bad. We are not clipping data in terms of luminosity, so we are safe here. So only the red is clipped, but this is perfectly acceptable. So again, let's just see before and after. So by adding those curves, we are still adding a little bit more light to the image. Maybe I will flatten a little bit the RGB curve so it won't be adding that much saturation to the image, as I was really happy with the color grading that I have created on the previous layer. So here we can manipulate with those points and set them to our liking. Okay, I think that this creates a really nice, pleasing effect. And let's maybe push this one just a notch lower, so we will be darkening our dark midtones here. Okay, perfect. I think the image looks really, really good. So let's maybe jump over to the Luma and let's see here. So if I go lower, this is affecting the background very strongly and is adding contrast or going back towards the matte effect. I think when the curve is a little bit lower, this gives more balanced result. So let's leave it like that and let's just hide our curve. So this is our image before applying the final luminosity adjustment with curves and after. So as the last step, I'm not sure if it's required here. Yeah, maybe a little bit. We can add just a bit of targeted sharpening. So let's create new field adjustment layer. Let's rename it. Let's call it sharpening. And here on this layer, let's jump over to the detail tab, and basically I want to take a look at the eyes, and basically I will add a little bit of sharpening to the eyes, a little bit maybe to the tip of the nose and the hair here. So nothing crazy, the image was sharp from the beginning, and let's just make it a little bit sharper, just a notch. So here I'm going to apply a mask. Now the mask is covering my image fully, so let's go for invert mask, and now we have to paint in back our sharpening to the image. So let's go for quite a strong flow, a little bit stronger, a little bit bigger size, and let's paint over the eyes. Let's switch off the preview of the mask, so just for the eyelashes, for the eyebrows, a little bit more on the eyes. Let's go with bigger brush. So now I'm increasing size of the brush with my right square bracket. Let's paint over here, and now maybe around the tip of the nose and a bit around the lips. So basically I think there is no need to sharpen the image further. Let's just show the mask. So this is where I have sharpened my mask. And just to unify the overall effect, I would add just a touch of film grain, because now especially those areas where we have flat color, like here in the hair and in the background, they are contrasting a bit in terms of texture with the skin, with the hair. So I want to unify it. I want to make the image a little bit less digital. So let's just jump over again to the details tab, and here it doesn't matter on which layer you are performing this adjustment, because you will always add your film grain to the background layer. So let's go maybe for Silver Ridge and let's apply a film grain here. Let's go for higher magnification level. So this is before and this is the after. So you can see that adding just a hint of the film grain simulation very beautifully unifies the whole image. Okay, so our image is ready. My only feeling is that the skin tones could be a little bit too saturated. So to fine-tune this, I might go back to my skin tone tab. This is the layer, to my skin tone layer, and to my skin tone tab, which will be here. So here is my color editor. So here I might be tempted to fine-tune this. So if I would go closer to the middle of the color wheel, I would be lowering saturation. However, I'm not sure about that. So I like the stylized color grading that I have applied overall to the image. And if I start manipulating with this will of course affect the rest. So the best idea for now will be for me just to step away from the screen and perhaps manipulate with this later, or I could alternatively just right click, create clone variant. So now I have my two images here. So I've been working on these two images today with you, and on this one you can see this gray frame around the image. So on this one I can try to lower my saturation, and I will decide further which one looks better. So let's do just that. So here, remember, it is important to be on the skin tone layer, so that way you will have access to everything, to all the work you've done with the skin tone tab. If I would go to a different layer, this will go inactive. So let's go back here and let's just push this little control point a little bit towards the middle of my color wheel. So this will be going down with saturation. I will be going more towards this silverish effect. And I think I like it a little bit more because this is going towards those very beautiful silverish tones, and now the lipstick is a little bit more visible. So the change is very subtle. Now we can, these two images side by side, I can say that I prefer the one to the right. This affected the background a little bit as well. So you can create as many variants as you like. You can play around and just introduce different adjustments and see what result is the best for your image, what benefits the image stronger. So let's maybe stay with this one or this one. I don't know, you can add a comment and you can tell me which one you prefer. I think I like this one better with a bit lower saturation on the skin. So this is our final result. Let's just super quick switch off the layers that we've been working on today. So we have started with this image as a base. I have performed the skin cleanup before dodging and burning, and I have enhanced the eyes. After this, we've been focusing on creating the stylized color grading on our skin tone tab. So this is what we've done here. We have pushed everything towards our selected color sample, everything towards this beige color. Next, we've been polishing our color grading with the color balance tool, and in the end we've been just adjusting a little bit of luminosity in the image, and we have finished it off with sharpening, with targeted sharpening. Remember the keyword targeted here, because I didn't apply sharpening over the whole image. I don't want to sharpen the skin that I spend so much time on cleaning up. So I want to maintain the skin beautiful and soft. I have just applied a bit of targeted sharpening over the eyes, a bit over the hair, and we have added just a very, very last step in form of the film grain simulation. So this is what you can do with the skin tone tab inside the color editor in Capture One. It is super powerful tab, and I want to encourage you to experiment with this tab because you can create really beautiful results. For those of you who would like to learn more about Capture One, I have a comprehensive course. You can find a link in the description to this video, and I believe it should appear in the upper right corner. So for everyone who wants to go in depth and learn Capture One, check out my course on Capture One. So thank you very much for watching. This was Kasia Zmokła from Digital Art Classes. And remember, if you have any questions, if you have any doubts, please leave me a comment under this video. I always reply to every comment on my videos. And if you have any suggestions for future videos, if you have anything that you would like to learn more about, if you have any specific techniques Capture One related, please leave me a comment as well. And if I find that it's interesting and if I find that it will benefit more viewers, I will definitely record a video on it. So again, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you soon in the next video.